One letter, one wrong address, and a love story that began with someone else's words, yet became their truth. She delivered a letter, unaware she was carrying fate. He wrote, never knowing who would become the true recipient of his heart. Between silence, glances, and pauses, a love is born, quiet, steady, and lasting. Sometimes the most important stories do not begin with a first glance, but with a letter delivered to the wrong address. Love letter.
Love Stories Max. Welcome to my channel. Enjoy watching, friends.
The address of the heart. I have always believed that coincidences do not exist. But that day, holding someone else's letter in my hands, I had no idea just how far a small mistake in an address could carry me. That morning was completely ordinary. The narrow stairwell smelled of coffee and old wood. The envelopes in the mailbox rustled like dry leaves. Bills, advertisements, something else unnecessary, and then a letter. Not mine. The paper was thick, slightly creamy, and the name on the envelope was unfamiliar. The handwriting was neat but alive, as if the hand had trembled just a little while writing. I wanted to simply set it aside and forget about it. Truly, I did, but for some reason, I couldn't. The letter wasn't sealed properly. The edge had come slightly open. I had no intention of reading it, honestly, but my eyes fell on the first line before I could stop myself. If you ever doubt whether I was sincere, know this: I loved you as if time itself did not exist. I froze. The words were warm, painfully tender, real. This was not just a letter. It was someone's love, carefully folded between lines. It spoke of morning light in her hair, of the way she laughed while covering her mouth with her hand, of the fear of losing her and, at the same time, of gratitude for every moment they had shared. I finished reading with tears in my eyes and a strange feeling, as if I had touched someone else's heart without permission. And then I understood. I had to return this letter. In person. The address was nearby. An old street lined with chestnut trees and houses that remembered more stories than people did. I walked slowly, the envelope pressed inside my bag, and caught myself feeling nervous. As if I were going on a date, not simply correcting a postal mistake. He opened the door. Stephen. I remembered him instantly. Not because of his looks, but because of his eyes. Warm, slightly startled, attentive. He wore a simple shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and his fingers were stained with ink, as if he had been writing just moments before. "I'm sorry," I began. "You received a letter. It was delivered to the wrong address." He looked at the envelope, and I saw something shift in his expression. Relief, and worry, and tenderness, all at once. "I thought it was lost," he said quietly. "Thank you for bringing it." A pause settled between us. Not a heavy one, but the kind that invites rather than presses. He offered me tea. I accepted, though I usually wouldn't. His apartment smelled of books, wood, and something deeply familiar. On the windowsill were dried flowers. Between the pages of books, bookmarks made from old tickets and handwritten notes. He wrote letters by hand. In our time. And somehow, that touched me more than anything else. Did you read it? He suddenly asked, not looking at me. I nodded. I felt a little embarrassed. There's a lot of truth in it, I said. It's beautiful. He smiled, sadly and sincerely. She never received it in time, he admitted. But it seems this letter found the person who was meant to read it. We talked for a long time. About small things. About life. About love that arrives quietly and stays forever. I caught myself watching how he held his cup, how he paused between words, how he laughed, slightly unsure, but warm. When I was leaving, he said, if it hadn't been for the wrong address, we would never have met. I think about that often. About how one lost letter found another story. About how love sometimes arrives at the wrong time and the wrong place, but exactly the way it's meant to. Now Stephen writes letters to me. And I know this. The most important ones always arrive. Even if, at first, they're sent to the wrong address. Love letter. I did not plan to stay long. Truly. But we sat over tea for almost 2 hours, and not a single minute felt unnecessary. Stephen brewed the tea too strong and apologized for it far too seriously, as if it were a real mistake. I laughed and added some water, and he watched closely as the steam rose from the cup. There was something deeply genuine in those small moments, as if we had known each other for a long time. He showed me his books. Not the ones you are supposed to read, but the ones you return to late at night. Between the pages, old movie tickets, handwritten notes, dried leaves. I touched them carefully, as if afraid of disturbing someone else's memories. Do you want to take a walk? He asked suddenly. Just step outside. No plan. It was already getting dark. Streetlights turned on slowly, one by one, as if the city were yawning after a long day. We walked side by side, not touching, yet I felt his presence, warm, steady. At the corner of the street, he bought 2 paper cups of hot cocoa. He handed one to me carefully, trying not to spill it. Our fingers brushed for a moment, and that was enough to throw my heart slightly off balance. We talked about small things. Favorite childhood smells. How hard it sometimes is to fall asleep. Music you play when you crave silence. And sometimes we fell quiet, not because there was nothing to say, but because the silence between us felt safe. We stopped near an old bridge. The water below moved softly, reflecting the lights above. Do you believe that some people come into our lives exactly when we're ready? He asked. I did not answer right away. I just looked at him. I think, I said slowly, that sometimes they arrive earlier. So we can learn how to be ready. He smiled, and this time, it was real. When it was time to say goodbye, neither of us hurried. He gently touched my hand, lightly, almost as a question. I'll write to you, he said. A letter. A real one. And I knew I would be waiting. Love letter. Rachel. I sat with this sheet of paper for a long time before writing the first word. Not because I did not know what to say, but because there was too much to say, and all of it asked to be honest. I cannot remember the last time someone stayed with me so quietly and unexpectedly. You did it without effort. You simply arrived with a letter that was not yours, and left me with something far greater. I liked the way you held your cup of hot cocoa, as if it might tell you something important. The way you listened, without interrupting, without rushing. The way you smiled, slightly looking away. There was so much warmth in those small details that I found myself wanting to remember every single one. I am writing to you because words on paper have always been my way of saying what my voice is afraid to scare away. And if I am honest, I want to see you again. To take another walk without a plan. To sit in silence. To learn what stories you carry inside you. If this letter brings even a shadow of the smile you had that evening, then I dared not in vain. Yours, Stephen. We met in the evening, when the city felt especially soft. The air carried the scent of rain that had fallen earlier that day, and the street lights spilled warm pools of light onto the pavement. We walked slowly, shoulder to shoulder. Sometimes our hands brushed, accidentally, as if by chance, but neither of us hurried to pull away. Near the same street, he stopped. I wanted to see if you were the same, he said, then paused. The same how? I asked quietly. Real, he replied. Even more so. He looked at me carefully, as if giving me time. I felt my heart beating somewhere near my throat. He lifted his hand and gently touched a strand of my hair, not boldly, but carefully, as if asking permission. I did not step back. The kiss was quiet, unhurried, slightly shy, warm. One that leaves calm behind instead of fire. The world seemed to shrink to that single moment, to breath, to closeness, to the feeling of, yes, right here. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine for a brief second. I'm glad the letter got lost, he whispered. And I knew. Some stories do not begin with a first glance, but with the first right step toward each other. Rachel, I walked home more slowly than usual, as if hurrying might make me lose something important. The air was cool, and I kept catching myself touching my lips, unconsciously, gently, as if checking whether it had really happened. The apartment was quiet. I did not turn on the lights right away. I took off my coat and hung it too carefully, smoothing the sleeves. Even though I never do that. I wanted order in small things. Inside, I made tea and forgot to drink it. The cup stood on the table, steam slowly fading, like thoughts that refuse to stay still. I sat on the edge of the bed and smiled, just like that, in the dark. I replayed his movements in my mind. The way he stopped. The way he did not rush. The way he waited. In a world where everyone is always running somewhere, he gave me time, and that felt like the most intimate thing of all. My phone lay nearby. I was not waiting for a message. And at the same time, I was. Not even from him, but from the feeling that this was not the end of the evening, but the beginning of something very quiet and very real. Before sleep, I let my hair down and stood by the window for a long moment. The city breathed evenly. I fell asleep knowing that some kisses do not steal your sleep, they make it deeper. Stephen, He did not turn on any music. That was rare for him. Sounds usually helped him think, but tonight's silence was necessary. He left the window slightly open. The night entered the room carefully. He took off his watch and placed it on the shelf. Time no longer mattered. His hands still remembered the warmth, light, real. Not urgency, not hunger. Presence. He sat at the desk and pulled out a sheet of paper. Wrote her name, and stopped. Smiled. Folded the paper in half and set it aside. Not yet. Some words need time to ripen. Time passed. Not the kind measured by dates, but the kind measured by habits, glances, and shared mornings. They developed their own rituals. Sunday coffee, which Stephen brewed a little slower than necessary because he loved how Rachel stood beside him, wrapped in a sweater, quietly watching. Letters, real, handwritten ones, even after they were living together. He tucked them into books, between pages, and she found them by accident, smiling every time as if it were the first. They learned not to rush, to give each other space, to listen, not to respond, but to understand. Their home filled with light and small things. Dried flowers on the windowsill, notes on the refrigerator, an old envelope in a drawer. The very one it all began with. It worked out for them. Not because it was easy, but because they chose each other, every day. And when someone asked how their story began, Rachel would smile and say, "With a letter that arrived at the wrong address, but to the right people."